Have you ever wondered why we spend so much of our lives chasing approval, waiting for others to tell us we're good enough, smart enough, worthy enough? What if I told you that your value has never been in their hands? That no applause, no validation, no amount of recognition can define who you are? You see, your worth is not a number. It's not a symbol. It's not something that can be taken away or given by anyone else. Philosophers like Marcus Aurelius and Epictetus knew this centuries ago, and modern psychology now confirms it. You are not defined by others. This is not just a feel-good idea. It's a revolution in how you see yourself. Because when you no longer let the world decide your worth, you step into a freedom that most people never taste. A freedom that is unshakable. It's unbending. It's profoundly yours. So let go of the need for approval. Let go of the fear of not being enough. Embrace the truth that you are more than enough, just as you are. Every day we wake up and step into a world where the eyes of others seem to follow us. It's their opinions, their expectations, their silent judgments. These often feel like invisible weights pressing down on our shoulders. We measure our worth by likes, by approval, by recognition that flickers and fades as quickly as it arrives. Yet deep down, a quiet voice whispers, "Is this truly who I am? Or is it just a reflection of what others see?" Stoicism begins here with a simple but radical reminder. Your value is not determined by the shifting winds of public opinion. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his Meditations, "It never ceases to amaze me. We all love ourselves more than other people, would care more about their opinion than our own." This paradox captures the human struggle. We want to live authentically, yet we surrender our identity to the fleeting thoughts of strangers. Modern psychology supports this Stoic insight. Studies in social validation show that human beings are wired to seek approval because acceptance once meant survival. But in today's world, survival is no longer tied to the tribe in the same way. Still, our brains chase validation like oxygen, leaving us vulnerable to anxiety, depression, and a constant sense of inadequacy when approval does not arrive. The Stoics would ask, why do you let another person's fleeting thought define the essence of your soul? If someone praises you, does that make you truly better? If someone insults you, does that make you truly worse? The truth is that you remain the same, your character, your actions. Your inner values exist independently of the crowd's applause or silence. This realization is not a call to arrogance, but to freedom. It is a gentle reminder that your worth is rooted not in how you are seen, but in how you live, in the virtues you embody when no one is watching. Epictetus once said, "If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid." True value lies in courage, in honesty, in resilience, not in applause. Imagine living a life where the noise of judgment fades into the background, where your compass is not the opinions of the many, but the clarity of your own reason and principles. This is not easy. It requires discipline, reflection, and the courage to stand alone. But this is the essence of Stoicism: to find stability within yourself, even as the world outside shifts endlessly. So, pause and ask yourself, if no one were watching, would I still choose this path? If the answer is yes, then you have already stepped closer to true freedom. The eyes of others will come and go. What remains always is you and the life you choose to live in accordance with your deepest values. What if I told you that one of the greatest illusions of our time is comparison? Think about it. In every corner of our modern life, from the curated perfection of social media feeds to the rat race of workplace achievements, we are bombarded with the illusion of other people's lives. Their victories, their possessions, their moments of happiness, all presented as if they are the full story. But what if I told you that this illusion is not just a trick of the mind, but a carefully constructed trap? You see, the Stoics warned against this ancient trap long before the age of screens. Seneca wisely noted that it is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more, that is poor. The trap of comparison lies in our tendency to measure our own self-worth against the achievements and possessions of others. But here's the kicker. We are comparing our behind-the-scenes journey with someone else's highlight reel. Modern psychology backs up what the Stoics intuited. Research and social comparison theory suggest that constantly comparing ourselves to others often leads to envy, dissatisfaction, and even despair. When we compare, we typically focus on the end result, the trophy, or the accolades. And we overlook the struggles, the doubts, and the invisible battles of those we envy. By fixating on the seemingly perfect lives of others, We inadvertently distort reality and rob ourselves of gratitude for what we already have. So how do we break free from this pervasive trap? The Stoics offer some powerful antidotes. Epictetus reminds us that our happiness is in our own hands. It's not in the hands of external circumstances or the achievements of others. And Epictetus would urge us to focus on what we can control, our thoughts and actions, and to release the need to control outcomes that are beyond our grasp. But how do we reconcile the Stoic wisdom with the realities of modern life, with the constant bombardment of images and information that fuels comparison? The key, I believe, lies in cultivating inner peace and self-acceptance. When we turn inward and discover the richness of our own story, we begin to see that our worth is not defined by external circumstances. When we focus on our own journey, we can celebrate the uniqueness of our experiences, including our struggles, because they become the building blocks of our resilience and character. Moreover, when we turn away from the distractions of comparison, we open ourselves up to the beauty of the present moment. We can savor the joy of a simple walk, the pleasure of a kind word, the comfort of a cozy evening inn. These moments, big and small, weave the tapestry of a rich and meaningful life. In essence, breaking free from the trap of comparison is a radical act of self-love and self-acceptance. It is a rejection of the unrealistic standards and narrow definitions of success imposed by society. It is a celebration of our shared humanity, of our common struggles and triumphs. When we stop comparing, we start living. We live authentically, joyfully, and courageously. You can't control everything, okay? That's obvious, right? Sometimes we think we do. Sometimes we act like we do. Sometimes it seems like we do, but we don't. So much of our suffering comes from the belief that we can control everything around us. We cling to outcomes, to the behavior of others, to the uncertain turns of fortune, as if sheer force of will could bend the world to our desires. But life resists our grip. The harder we try to hold on, the more it slips through our fingers, leaving us frustrated, anxious, and exhausted by a burden we were never meant to carry. The Stoics offered a profound antidote to this illusion, a distinction between what is within our control and what is not. Marcus Aurelius began his meditations with this very principle. Some things are up to us, and some are not. It sounds simple, yet it is one of the most liberating truths a human being can embrace. For once we see clearly where our influence ends, we free ourselves from the torment of chasing what was never ours to command. Modern psychology echoes this ancient wisdom. Studies on locus of control show that people who focus on what they can influence, such as their effort, their choices, and their mindset, tend to experience greater resilience and well-being. In contrast, those who obsess over external outcomes, like other people's approval or uncontrollable events, often fall into cycles of helplessness and despair. Think of the moments when you demanded life to obey your plans. Did it? Or did circumstances, fate, or sheer chance interfere? The Stoics would remind us that the universe is vast, complex, and indifferent to our demands. To believe we can control it all is not strength, but delusion. True strength is found in adapting and adjusting our sails when the winds change, rather than cursing the storm for not listening to our command. This is not a call to passivity. It is an invitation to channel your energy where it truly matters, into your character, your actions, your choices. You cannot control whether others praise or reject you, but you can control whether you act with integrity. You cannot dictate the outcome of every effort, but you can choose the sincerity you bring into it. In this lies real freedom, the freedom of directing your power toward what is yours alone. Imagine how light life would feel if you let go of the illusion of control. No longer chained by fear of failure, no longer enslaved by the shifting moods of others, you would stand grounded in what cannot be taken away: your reason, your virtue, your will. This is the heart of Stoicism, not resignation, but empowerment through clarity. So the next time anxiety whispers that you must control everything, pause and remember, the world is not yours to command, but your mind, your choices, your response. That is where your kingdom lies. Protect it, cultivate it, and you will find a strength no storm can shake. We're surrounded by judgment. We hear it in conversations, see it in the subtle expressions on people's faces, feel it in the unspoken comparisons that linger in the air. Some people will praise us, some will criticize us, and many more will misunderstand us entirely. If we let every voice enter our mind, we will never know peace. We will live not as ourselves, but as a reflection of the crowd's expectations. Marcus Aurelius, who carried the weight of ruling an empire, knew this truth intimately. He wrote, "I have often wondered how it is that every man loves himself more than all the rest of men, but yet sets less value on his own opinion of himself than on the opinion of others." Even an emperor, admired by millions, understood the futility of chasing approval. If the judgment of the masses could not bring him peace, why should it bring us peace? Modern psychology offers a striking parallel. The phenomenon known as the spotlight effect shows that we tend to overestimate how much people notice and evaluate us. In reality, most are too consumed with their own struggles to think deeply about us, yet our minds amplify every glance, every word, until it feels as though the world is watching. The truth is, the world is not watching as closely as we imagine. The Stoics invite us to shift perspective. If someone speaks ill of you, ask, does their opinion alter the truth of who you are? If someone mocks you, does it erase your virtues, your choices, your inner strength? Judgment is often more about the person who gives it than the one who receives it. Their words reveal their values, their fears, their limitations, not your worth. Think of the countless souls who lived before us, whose names are lost to history, whose faces we've never seen, yet whose lives were as rich and complex as our own. We too will be judged by some, praised by others, and mostly forgotten by all. Our worth is not measured by the fleeting applause of the crowd or the whispers of those who seek to diminish us. It is measured by the depth of our character, the honesty of our actions, and the resilience of our spirit. The Stoics offer us a different way to live, to laugh, to love, to lose, to fail, to try again, to be human. They invite us to live authentically, to accept what we cannot change, to improve what we can, to take responsibility for our thoughts, actions, and character. They teach us that true freedom lies not in seeking the approval of others, but in living according to our own values and principles. So the next time you hear the noise of judgment, let it pass like wind against stone. The voices of others will rise and fall, but your value rests not in their sound, but in the quiet strength of your own character. Hold to that, and no chorus of judgment can shake you. In a world that's obsessed with how much you have, how famous you are, or how important you seem, it's easy to forget that those things don't really measure what kind of person you are. The things you own, the titles you've earned, the status you have, all of that can change in a heartbeat. But the real you, the essence of who you are, that's made up of the values you stand by, the principles you live by, the kind of person you are when no one is watching. That's what truly matters. The Stoics knew this really well. People like Marcus Aurelius and Epictetus and Seneca, they understood that the things you can't control, like what happens to you, how other people treat you, whether you win or lose, those things don't define you. What does define you is what you choose to do, and how you choose to respond, the values you stand by, the principles you live by. Those are the things that truly define you. Marcus Aurelius, the emperor, he used to write these reminders to himself. These little notes that said, hold fast to justice, to wisdom, to courage, to self-discipline. Why? Because he knew that these things were within his power. But everything else, the fortune, the praise, the loyalty of those around him, those things were not within his power. He knew that if he held on tight to these inner things, no one could ever take them away from him. And modern psychology backs this up. There's all this research on intrinsic motivation, which basically says that when you do things because they matter to you, when you act in line with your values, you feel more meaning, more resilience, more fulfillment in your life. But when you chase after things that don't really matter to you, things like approval or money or recognition, you often end up feeling empty and unsatisfied. You're at the mercy of external forces, and that's a shaky foundation to build your self-worth on. Epictetus, one of the great Stoic philosophers, he used to say that wealth doesn't come from having lots of stuff, but from not wanting what you don't have. He said that true wealth comes from within. It's about being satisfied with what you have and not being enslaved by your desires for things you do not. So the next time you're tempted to compare yourself to others, to buy into the idea that someone else's success or happiness means you're not successful or happy enough, remember that your worth isn't measured by the things you own, the status you have, or the numbers on the scale. It's measured by the kind of person you choose to be, the values you stand by, the principles you live by. The person you are when no one is watching, that's where your true worth lies. There's a beautiful line from the poet Rumi: "What you seek is seeking you." I love this because it captures the essence of authenticity. What we genuinely seek, what we're looking for, is often searching for us, trying to get our attention. We just need to turn around and recognize it. You know, when you think about the most fulfilling relationships, the deep friendships and profound loves in your life, how did they start? Often with a simple, "I like you for who you are." That's what makes them so special, that acceptance and appreciation without any conditions. But here's the twist. When it comes to ourselves, when we're talking about living by our own principles, we tend to overcomplicate things. We make it about fitting in, about being accepted by everyone. And that's where the problem starts. Because when we try to be everything to everyone, we end up being nothing to no one. We lose ourselves in the process of trying to be liked. Epictetus had a different perspective. He said, "If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid." At first, it sounds kind of harsh, right? Why would we ever want to be thought of as foolish? But he was talking about the times when what's right isn't popular, when doing the right thing makes you stand out, when your principles don't align with the crowd. In today's world, we often prioritize fitting in over doing what's right. We stay silent when we should speak up. We eat when we're full by things we don't need. Spend time with people who do not value us just to avoid being alone or being labeled as weird or unpopular. But this constant need for validation comes at a cost. It robs us of our authenticity, our unique voice, our personal growth. So what does true authenticity look like? Speaking up for what you believe in, even if it makes you unpopular. It's staying true to your values, even when they're not the majority view. It's walking away from things that don't serve you, even if it means being labeled as picky or difficult. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor, wrote, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it." In other words, the pain of being misunderstood. The fear of being judged is not caused by others, but by our attachment to their approval. When we detach from that need, when we stop demanding that everyone understand or agree with us, the fear disappears. Being misunderstood is not a sign of failure. It's often a sign of integrity. This means you're walking your own path, not a popular one. And that's where the beauty of this idea lies. In the freedom, the quiet strength of living in harmony with yourself, not based on others' approval. At the heart of Stoicism lies a simple truth. Peace begins when we make peace with ourselves. For so long we are taught to chase worth in the eyes of others, to seek validation, to perform, to compare, to control, to be understood. Yet all of this chasing leaves us weary, because it anchors our value outside of us, in things we cannot hold. Self-acceptance is the turning point, the quiet return to the place where real strength resides within. The Stoics remind us that self-acceptance is not indulgence or complacency. It is not about saying, "I am perfect as I am." Rather, it is about acknowledging both our strengths and our flaws with honesty, choosing to live in harmony with what we can control, our actions, our judgments, our will. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Be tolerant with others and strict with yourself." Acceptance begins with seeing ourselves clearly, neither inflated by pride nor diminished by shame. Modern psychology echoes this wisdom. Research on self-compassion shows that those who accept themselves with kindness, rather than harsh criticism, are more resilient and motivated to grow. When we stop treating ourselves as an enemy, we free our energy to focus on what matters, living a meaningful life. Self-acceptance, then, is not the end of striving, it is the beginning of true growth, grounded in stability rather than fear. Imagine a life where you no longer seek to prove your worth in every room you enter. Instead, you carry a quiet confidence, rooted in knowing who you are and what you stand for. You no longer fear judgment, comparison, or misunderstanding, because you no longer need the world to affirm your existence. This is the peace that Stoicism points us toward, the unshakable calm of a soul at rest within itself. This peace does not make you passive. In fact, it makes you stronger. For when you accept yourself, you no longer fight against your own nature. You redirect your energy outward, into building, creating, serving, and living with purpose. Your worth is not up for debate, not fragile in the hands of strangers. It is anchored, steady, whole. Self-acceptance is the shield against life's turbulence. External chaos will come, but when you no longer wrestle with yourself, you meet the world with clarity and courage. You act not to prove your value, but because it is who you are. And in this alignment, every step becomes lighter, every challenge less threatening, every day more meaningful. So pause, take a breath, and look inward. You are not what others say, not the sum of comparisons, not the echoes of judgment. You are a human soul, imperfect yet capable, fragile yet resilient. Accept yourself fully, and you will find that the peace you have been searching for was never out there. It was always waiting within. One of the most liberating practices in Stoicism is learning the art of indifference. Not indifference in the sense of apathy or carelessness, but a deeper discipline, the ability to remain steady in the face of both praise and criticism. The Stoics called this state apatheia, freedom from being controlled by passions and external opinions. When others celebrate you, you remain grounded. They condemn you, you remain unshaken. Your value does not rise or fall with their words, for it rests in something far more enduring. Marcus Aurelius often reminded himself not to be carried away by the voices of the crowd. He wrote, "Receive without pride, let go without attachment. Praise may feel sweet, but it is fleeting. Criticism may sting, but it too will pass. To place your worth in either is to live in chains, pulled back and forth by forces you cannot command. The discipline of indifference is the art of breaking those chains, though modern psychology offers a mirror to this wisdom. Studies show that external validation activates the brain's reward system much like a drug, creating short bursts of pleasure followed by a craving for more. This cycle can trap us, leaving us dependent on approval to feel whole. But when we cultivate indifference, not rejecting feedback, but not being enslaved by it, we begin to break free from this addictive loop. Epictetus taught his students to separate what truly matters from what does not. He said, "If you are ever tempted to look for outside approval, realize that you have compromised your own integrity." To the Stoics, integrity mattered more than reputation. What others thought of you was beyond your control. What you chose to be, that was yours. And only in mastering this distinction could a person live free. Imagine carrying yourself through life with this calm strength. Someone praises your work, you thank them, but you do not cling to it. Someone mocks your choices, you hear them, but you do not collapse under it. Instead, you remain steady, like a rock against which waves crash without moving it. This is the discipline of indifference, not coldness, but clarity. The power to remain whole, no matter what storms surround you. Such indifference does not make life empty. In fact, it makes life fuller. When you are no longer consumed by chasing praise or avoiding criticism, you are free to pour your energy into what truly matters, living with virtue, creating with sincerity, and acting with courage. You are no longer pulled in every direction by the crowd. You walk your own path, guided by the compass within. So the next time praise lifts you up or criticism drags you down, pause and remind yourself, both are just echoes in the wind. They cannot change who you are. Your value is not measured by their voices, but by your fidelity to your own principles. In this indifference lies not cold detachment, but the deepest form of freedom. There's one more truth we often forget. People's opinions are never truly about us. They are reflections of their own world, their insecurities, their upbringing, their fears, their limited knowledge. A person who ridicules your dreams might be someone who once gave up on theirs. A person who judges your appearance might be carrying hidden battles with their own self-image. When you recognize that most judgments are projections, not truths, you begin to see how fragile and unstable they are. Why should your value rest upon the shifting moods and shadows of someone else's perspective? Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Choose not to be harmed, and you won't feel harmed." This is not denial, but mastery. It is the discipline of refusing to give power to the noise around you. If someone's opinion can shatter your self-worth, then you have handed them control over your peace. But when you reclaim that control, their words lose their sting, dissolving like smoke in the wind. Psychology supports this ancient wisdom. Studies on locus of control show that those with an internal locus who believe their worth and happiness come from within tend to be more resilient, confident, and fulfilled. Those with an external locus, by contrast, live at the mercy of others' approval. Their sense of identity rises and falls with every compliment or criticism, like a fragile boat tossed on a stormy sea. To shift toward the internal locus is to anchor yourself to say, I define me, not them. Imagine the freedom that comes from no longer being chained to perception. You walk into a room not to impress, but simply to be. You share your work not for validation, but for expression. You love not to earn worthiness, but because love flows naturally from a heart already full. This is not arrogance. It is self-possession, the quiet confidence that blooms when you know who you are, regardless of the audience. In practice, this freedom is built moment by moment. Each time you resist the urge to check if someone approves, you strengthen your inner foundation. Each time you remind yourself their opinion is not my truth, you reclaim a piece of your sovereignty. Slowly, your sense of self becomes unshakable, like a tree rooted deeply in the earth, swaying but never falling when the winds of judgment pass. And yet, this does not mean we ignore others entirely. Wisdom lies in balance. We can listen, we can learn, we can grow, but without making others our mirror. Feedback becomes information, not definition. Praise becomes encouragement, not oxygen. Criticism becomes perspective, not prophecy. When you master this balance, you can engage with the world fully, yet remain whole within yourself. So the next time someone judges you, pause and ask, does this come from truth or from their own story? Most often, you will find it is the latter. Let it go. Carry forward. Your worth was never in their words to begin with. It has always been in your hands, waiting for you to guard it with quiet strength. We spend much of our lives staring into invisible mirrors held by other people. Their glances, their judgments, their opinions become distorted reflections we start mistaking for truth. But Stoicism teaches us that the only mirror worth looking into is the one we hold within. This mirror is not polished by flattery or clouded by criticism. It reflects only the essence of who we are, untouched by the shifting sands of society. When we finally dare to face it, we begin to see not how others perceive us, but who we truly are. This inner mirror asks us not, what do they think of me? But am I living in harmony with my values? It doesn't demand perfection, but honesty. When Marcus Aurelius reminded himself to return to reason, even after moments of weakness, he was using this mirror not to admire himself, but to realign himself with what he believed mattered most. This reflection was not for show. It was a compass, a reminder of his own principles when the world around him blurred. The greatest trap we fall into is believing that self-worth is given by others, like coins tossed into our empty hands. But the Stoic mirror teaches us that we already carry within us the wealth of dignity, courage, and wisdom. No applause can add to it, and no insult can take it away. To see this clearly requires courage, the courage to stop performing for others and start living for truth. Of course, this is not easy. It's the noise of comparison, the sting of rejection, the allure of approval. These temptations will always be there. Yet the mirror within is patient. Each time we return to it, even if just for a moment, we find clarity. We are reminded that our value is not a performance but a presence, not a transaction but a truth. And in that truth, there is calm. When we begin to trust this mirror, we no longer rush to prove ourselves. We stop competing in silent battles no one else notices. We move slower, but with more weight. Every action, every word, every choice carries the quiet authority of someone who no longer begs to be seen but simply is. And in that authenticity, others are often more deeply moved than by any performance we could have staged. In the end, life is not about how brightly others reflect us back, but how faithfully we reflect our own essence. If you look into your inner mirror today, what do you see? Not the version others project onto you, not the roles you've been asked to play, but the raw and unpolished truth of who you are. That is where freedom begins, and that is where self-worth finds its home. So pause for a moment, close the invisible mirrors around you and turn to the one within. Let it guide you back to yourself. Because when you learn to see your worth clearly there, no judgment, no rejection, no silence from others can ever take it away. And that, perhaps, is the most radical act of resilience we can practice. In the end, life is not a stage where the audience decides who we are. Your worth has never depended on how many people praise you or how few truly understand you. It lives within you. It's in the way you rise each morning, in the small choices you make with integrity, and in the courage to remain yourself, even when the world says otherwise. Do not hand over the mirror of your identity to others. Look inward, not outward. Only then will you find true freedom. If this message resonates with you, stay with us on this journey. Hit the subscribe button to be part of this space of reflection. Turn on the notifications so you won't miss what's ahead. And share this video with someone who might need the reminder they are worthy, conditionally, without proof, without validation. And before we close, ask yourself this: if today I lived without anyone's judgment, what would I do wholeheartedly?